Welcome to Section 2, the purpose and activities of risk management. There will be 5 questions in the exam from this topic. As I mentioned before, the questions will be in the same sequence as the sequence of the sections in this training. The syllabus for the exam is to describe what risk management is and the purpose of risk management, and to differentiate between risk, asset, vulnerability, and threat. You might recollect we had those two terms in the previous section, vulnerability and threat. We're going to understand that clearly now. And then also how to address those risks and opportunities by establishing a context for the risk management, and then to establish certain criteria for risk assessment and acceptance, followed by identifying risks, then analyzing and evaluating them, then treating them, and monitoring and reviewing them. There are certain terms that will come up, such as risk register, risk avoidance, risk modification, risk sharing, risk retention, risk treatment plan, and defense in depth as well. You might see some learnings here are the same as what you know already, not necessarily from cyber resilience, but because risk management is a general topic in management, and but then we need to know how this connects with cyber resilience. So we begin here, risk management. The management of cyber resilience is mainly about managing risks and to implement the preventive, detective, and corrective control actions to manage those risks. Risks may also sometimes have positive outcomes. For example, investment in a new business opportunity is like a positive risk situation. The term risk means it's not guaranteed. It's like a probability only and with a certain impact if it occurs. And formal risk management enables better business decision making for actions of the business based on an understanding of risks and their likely impact on the achievement of business objectives. Risk management has gained a lot of significance and importance in the recent years in all endeavors, be it operational endeavors or project endeavors, program, portfolio endeavors, and so on of any organization. Now, every organization has its own risk tolerance, and it is the responsibility of the board of directors or someone equivalent or a body that is equivalent to define the risk appetite and the risk management approach. In terms of risk tolerance, for example, some organizations could be risk averse or even risk seeking or risk neutral. Risk neutrality is a good thing because such organizations take calculated risks. They do their homework to understand how much risk they should be practically be seeking or taking. On the other hand, risk averse organizations might not take any risks at all and may lose some opportunities that are worth it. And on the other hand, risk seeking organizations will might take too much risk than they should be taking. Therefore, risk neutral is a good approach. Again, you don't have to know those 3 types of risk tolerances or risk appetites, but we have to acknowledge here only that every organization has its own risk tolerance, which can be defined in their as part of their governance, both the risk appetite and the risk tolerance. Now, tolerance is a very specific number. So appetite could be high, low, medium, or risk seeking, risk neutral, risk averse. But tolerance usually comes to a threshold value. For example, in a project, they could, if a project is worth estimated, let's say 10 million euros, then they might have a risk tolerance of, let's say 1 million, which means that the project will not be approved if the risks are not brought down to below the 1 million. So that's called the risk tolerance limits. And this is where the board of directors will define the risk appetite. If they are risk seeking, then they might allow that 1 million. If they are risk averse, they might say, sorry, there should be 0 risk or maybe just a 100K of risk or something quite low. There are several risk management methodologies available. Some are listed here, the MOR, which is from Axelos and PeopleCert. In fact, there are certifications available for MOR. The current version is MOR 4. There used to be an MOR 3, which is still available. We do offer certifications of MOR. It has got a foundation and a practitioner certificate. This is a framework for managing risk at all levels throughout an organization to help the organization take informed decisions. And you can see more information about this in section 2.1 of the RESILIA guide related to this MOR. Whereas the detailed information of this can be found only in the MOR publication itself. So in the MOR publication, we have For example, not only operational risks, but also strategic risks and program and other types of risks. Then we have ISO 31000. This is an international standard defining the risk management principles and guidelines. It defines the risk management approach at a high level. One thing about this, it is a standard just for adoption and adaptation. There is no certification awarded for this standard, unlike a few other ISO certifications. Then ISO IEC 27001, a very well-known international standard for information security management system. Again, this is not a risk management standard, but it has many requirements relating to risk management. The risk management approach used in RESILIA is aligned with this requirements in ISO IEC 27001. We will look at this a little bit more a little later. Then we have the NIST framework for improving critical infrastructure cybersecurity. I was mentioning this earlier. We have a little more information here, but then we're going to cover even a little bit more afterwards. This is a US-based framework, describes itself as a risk-based approach to managing cybersecurity risk. And the approach used in RESILIA is similar to the approach described in this NIST framework. COBIT-5, another one, it's a business framework for governance and management of enterprise IT. Although it is not about risk management, it includes aspect of risk management at many levels of the framework. At One World Training, we also offer certification training for COBIT as well. COBIT originally stood for Control Objectives in IT, but now COBIT is just used as an acronym rather than an expansion of it. If you are familiar with ITIL, then you will see some resemblance of that with COBIT. However, COBIT is wider than ITIL. It can bring in ITIL, but it's more about governance. Then we have here assets. Assets are things that have value to an organization. And it can be, for example, IT systems, but also people, information, business processes, intellectual property, buildings, company reputation, etc. So both tangible and intangible assets. And therefore, it is important that an organization must determine if certain assets have to be protected, and if yes, then how to protect them. It is not necessary that all assets have to be protected. Generally, it begins with the understanding of the critical assets and then the protection for them before moving on to the non-critical ones. So some examples of assets: a tablet computer on the kitchen table, a credit card data stored on a PC, confidential patient information stored on a server in a hospital, a bank debit card that allows cash to be withdrawn from a bank account. And there could be many other examples. Now, the asset value. This depends on how the organization uses the asset and ability of that asset to produce a business outcome. It is not the financial value that is recorded in a fixed asset register. Let's take an example. A computer that may be used by passengers to browse the internet in an airport, it may have a much lower value to the business than an identical computer that performs a vital function in the air traffic control center. So it's a very clear example of the value of asset, how it's differing.